Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, February 2nd, 2026. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education. The first item is that we are going to call the meeting to order. Do I have a motion? Pete, second. Lou? All in favor? Okay. And now we are going to convene to executive session to discuss contract negotiations with CSEA and TAA. Do I have a motion? Pete, second. Joel, all in favor? Okay, we'll see everybody back here at 7:30. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Sorry for the short delay. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Okay. Looks like we are going to start tonight with our budget presentation for the 2026-2027 Budget Development Update Revenue Forecast. Do you want us to switch around so we can? Oh, we have.
Yeah, if you go over there,
so we can go over there.
Front row, we can.
Okay. Oh.
Okay. All right, so good evening, everyone, to all of our board trustees, faculty, parents, and community members in attendance and watching from home this evening. We're going to be presenting on our budget development revenue forecast this evening, and I'm here with Ms. Sparks, our business manager, to walk through some of our processes when we do look at our revenues for the district for the upcoming budgeting process. So as we continue to present on Tuckahoe's budget development journey, our focus tonight is on the district's forecasted revenue streams. This foundation will, this is our foundation and what makes our budget strong. Looking at the revenue streams, it allows us to turn our educational goals into tangible results for our students, providing a clear picture of where the district's revenues come from, how they are generated, and why it is critical to maintaining a balanced, sustainable budget that supports teaching, learning, and the overall success and progress of our students, and that we support the needs of all students. Tuckahoe's revenue streams are generated from various sources: local taxpayer funding, New York State funding, grants, and other ancillary sources, which directly impacts our programs and services that we provide for our students each year. Through careful and thoughtful planning, our goal is to always ensure that every dollar is well spent and is aligned with our mission, preparing every student for excellence, which includes high-quality programs, rigorous curriculum, abundant extracurricular activities, and services that meet the needs of all students. This slide may be familiar. We showed it in last board workshop, highlighting our balancing of the budgeting process. So as we look at revenues more specifically today, we're going to focus on the revenue side, examining where our school district funding comes from, how it supports our priorities, and the factors that influence revenues for the 26-27 budget. This understanding is critical as we make informed decisions about how we allocate funds in the way that best supports our students and our mission. Taking a closer look at our revenues is extremely important, as this will inform these important decisions when considering potential programs, services for the upcoming school year, and these decisions were not going to be made in isolation. We continue to look closely at all the projected needs of our students for next year and into future years, just to ensure that the district can fully support high-quality programming and services that we wish to offer each and every year. I'm going to invite Ms. Sparks, our business manager, to walk us through the revenue categories in detail and explain how all these funding sources support our students and the programs. We'll open up for questions at the end. Ms. Sparks.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Good evening, Tuckahoe Board of Education and Tuckahoe community. This evening, I will start by highlighting our largest revenue stream, real property taxes. Real property taxes, also referred to as the tax levy, are the primary funding source for the Tuckahoe School District, making up about 74% of our total revenue. The tax levy is set each year through the annual budget process, but New York State imposes a tax cap limit that limits how much the levy can increase. For the 2026-27 school year, the following factors will determine Tuckahoe's tax cap calculation. The Consumer Price Index for urban customers, also known as CPI-U, which measures inflation, is 2.63%, but it's capped at 2% for the purpose of this formula. Our tax-based growth factor adds 0.45% to our calculation. Now, these two factors are set by the state. Tuckahoe has no input over the tax-based growth factor, which measures brick and mortar growth, like actual building in our district, or the rate of inflation. Our preliminary tax levy limit, according to the formula, would be an increase not to exceed 2.47% or $807,056. At this point in the budgeting process, we are using some estimates for two other components of the tax cap formula, and that's payment in lieu of taxes. We call them pilots. They're agreements between commercial properties in the district and the town of Eastchester. So we're still waiting for some information from the town on that. And the other factor that is using estimates is our capital debt service for next year. We're still waiting for some information on interest rates as we're looking to sell bonds this year related to our 2021 and 23 capital projects in April. So we should have a better estimate of where interest rates are as we move further in the budgeting process. Once we have this information, we will be able to finalize our formula. The following slide illustrates the complex state-mandated step-by-step calculation of our tax cap formula. I've highlighted the numbers that are still preliminary. The screen's kind of far away, so I was hoping I could walk over, but I don't know if everyone could see it or if you have a copy in front of you. So when we run through this calculation, we start with our prior year's tax levy, which is in row A, and then we're allowed to increase it by that tax-based growth factor that measures the brick and mortar growth, so that's the 0.45%. And then we're allowed, then we have to add back last year's pilots because we subtract them out because we get them as revenue, so we don't want to levy for them. So we add back last year's pilots, and then we're allowed to increase the total of that by the rate of inflation. Then what we do is we have to account for the projected pilots and our capital debt, which is the bottom yellow line, the $2,316,678. So what that factor does is we've issued bonds in the past, voters approved projects, some going back to 2006. We've issued debt for them. We have some state aid to offset it. We're allowed to levy for that, so we're allowed to add that back into our formula. So that brings our total preliminary tax cap limit to 2.47% or $807,056. Any proposed tax levy increase between 0% and 2.47% requires a standard majority voter approval of 50% plus 1. However, in the event a school district proposes a levy above their calculated cap, such proposal would require a supermajority vote of 60% approval from voters. So every district follows this formula. They're just using different numbers. So this is a state prescribed formula. We don't make any changes to it. We just plug and play. We just put our numbers in. And whatever's in yellow is right now preliminary. And as we move further, we'll have more information on it. So I created the chart on this slide to highlight the annual budget percent growth, which is in blue, and our annual tax levy growth, percent growth, which is in orange. And as you can see, the budget growth has consistently outpaced the tax levy revenue growth. The primary reason for that is the tax levy is limited by state law, which caps how much we can raise each year. At the same time, many of our basic expenses, simply to just operate our schools and turn on the lights, are increasingly growing at a faster pace. Some of these include opening our buildings, keeping the lights on, transporting students safely, general liability insurance, health insurance. I don't know if you want to add any just basic operational costs that we face on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think this slide's really important to our district. Our tax levy, the tax cap is about 74% of our district revenue. And as you can see, if you look at the last 4 years, the budget percentage that the budget actually increases is far outpacing that major revenue source that we have. So we have to also look at all our other revenues, the state aid, which we'll talk about, that we just received from the governor's budget, and the advocacy that we're going to have to do to try to get our fair share of state aid that we deserve here at Tuckahoe and many other districts as well, which is right now capped at 1%. So a little more will come into that, but really it's just to highlight the with the current economic factors, regular costs, as Ms. Sparks said, just the regular costs of running school, turning the lights on, insurance, health insurance, contractual costs, the percentage of our budget is increasing at a much more significant pace, and we have to be very strategic in all of our decisions and really hit every decision with a home run that we are, from whether it's a contractual obligation, whether it's a program we're investing in, so that we are being very intentional with our budgetary decisions, and that each and every budgetary decision is supporting student need, and it is designed to help our students be successful here.
And I want to emphasize the fact that this isn't a Tuckahoe problem. If you were to pull this chart for every district in our region, you would see this. We're heavily funded in this part of the state by tax levy monies. So this is probably consistent with most districts, and even some of our neighboring more wealthy districts would show a pattern like this. The only anomaly here is 21-22, and that was COVID, where our expenses were extremely low and we had an influx of revenues that year. So this is part of, like what Mr. Roberts said, our advocacy at the state level, which we'll talk about more, because again, this isn't a Tuckahoe thing. This chart would ring true for any district if you put the numbers in. When we talk about other revenue sources, our next largest revenue source comes from state aid. And as such, we are closely monitoring the governor's executive budget, which was released on January 20th. Overall, the budget includes a statewide increase of school aid and $1.3 billion, or 3.6%, with foundation aid up by $779 million, or about 3%. The Save Harmless provision has been preserved, along with the 1% due minimum increase. So just to explain what the Save Harmless provision is, the way the foundation aid formula runs, a district could be in a position where their formula aid for 1 year is less than the previous year. And for decades, the governor's budget has included something called Save Harmless, where a district will not receive less than they did in the previous year, even if the formula runs to show less. I don't know if you guys remember, last year there was a big deal. The governor had proposed to eliminate the Save Harmless, and initially it looked like some districts were going to be severely penalized and lose a significant amount of aid. That was restored last year, and we're happy to say it's been restored. It's still in the budget for this year. However, the one thing that changed is the due minimum increase. So any district on Save Harmless gets some sort of an increase. Historically, that's been probably anywhere from 2% to 3%. This year, it's proposed to be 1%. And also for the 26-27 school year, it's probably the first year in many years that Tuckahoe falls into the Save Harmless provision. So I'll show you in my next few charts that we've had a number of years where we've had increases in state aid, but 26-27, we are projected to be in the Save Harmless provision of a 1%. While any increase is helpful, We are disappointed that it's only 1%, especially considering the rising costs we face to operate our schools and serve our students. One brighter note that I'd like to highlight is the governor is committed to putting more money into universal pre-K, so the per-child funding is projecting to increase to $10,000 a student with no cap on the number of students. But however, we still have to make sure we have the space for the students. So while there is no cap on students, we still need to be able to serve them. But it does open us up to allow if another community-based organization can help us. It gives us more options. And then by 28, 29, universal pre-K will be mandatory for any child, any parent that wants it for their child. So something that a lot of districts are looking at and need more information on. You know, it's very preliminary right now, but there is a commitment to funding the universal pre-K. So there are a lot of key areas that we continue to advocate for change. These include tax cap reform, adjustments to the foundation aid formula and minimum increase, changes to fund balance limits, the ability to establish a health insurance reserve is something we've brought up to our state senators and our assembly people, as well as piggybacking and something called project labor agreements. There is a law expiring for piggybacking, which if you've listened to our meetings, we do a lot of piggybacking on bids because we really are small. So losing that provision would really be harmful to us. And then project labor agreements is the way certain capital projects have to be with the vendors, how they have to work with vendors. That's more of a Long Island issue, but we are advocating because if it passes in Long Island, they're not too far away and it could potentially come our way. So it's something that we are putting on our advocacy list. The zero emission bus transitions and addressing special education cost shifts where the state has shifted some certain special education costs back to the districts. These are all areas where state policy could better support districts like ours, help us maintain quality programs for our students. Do you want to speak to the advocacy we've been doing?
Sure, thank you. So we've had the opportunity to get on some recent Zoom calls. We were with Amy Paulin, Assemblywoman in Paulin, and Ms. Sparks was also in a meeting with Senator Shelley Mayer. The advocacy of our local region is key. Schools in similar circumstances as ours, and also how we advocate for Tuckahoe. Writing letters, letting the governor know what our priorities are. Certain initiatives that are unfunded mandates, we have to share our concern and make sure the governor is aware. As school districts, we can't allow for EV buses to impact going in this direction, increase costs for contracts, and then having to make difficult decisions about instructional positions. So those are the things that we can't be put in that position, and it's important that our legislatures, the congressmen and congresswomen, advocate for us and let the governor know where we stand. That process will go on back and forth as the governor brings her proposals forward to the Senate and the House. They'll add to those budget proposals, and then the governor's budget will hopefully be more advantageous, and then we'll see some increases, hopefully, whether it be through the 1% or other reliefs through our advocacy. We'll continue those efforts, but it's very important that we continue writing letters, reaching out to our legislators, and also letting the governor know through various means, using our professional organizations as well to leverage that capacity. I believe there's 68% of school districts are in the category of getting only the 1% of state aid, which really puts a deficit on expansion of programs or even just maintaining a balanced budget, which is difficult, as we demonstrated on the slide earlier.
Yes, thank you. And as we think about these priorities, like Mr. Roberts said, we don't want any school district to be in a position where you're choosing between the costs of the zero emission buses and retaining appropriate instructional staff. So we will continue our advocacy at the state level. So Tuckahoe's historical breakdown of state aid is shown by year on this chart. State aid is made up of a number of different categories. Foundation aid is the largest category of aid, and it's the darker blue at the bottom of each bar. The expense-driven aids are shown in orange on the chart, and they're the second largest category. But I'd like to caveat that where it looks like the expense-driven aids and orange portion are growing, they only grow when expenses grow. And expenses have to grow a lot to get even a little movement on an expense-driven aid. So if our transportation aid is going up and we're only getting 23% in aid on transportation, we need a lot of growth too. So, it's foundation aid is really the only aid that's not driven by how much you spend or something like that. There are some other very small ones at the top of the chart. I'll go into those a little more. But if you look at the two bars on the right side of the graph, which is the state aid for this year and the proposed for next year, foundation aid is relatively flat for next year. This chart breaks down each category even further and shows the dollar amount, so the impact is easier to see. If you look at over prior years, you'll notice Tuckahoe has received foundation aid increases that were much higher than the 1% minimum. This is a meaningful shift compared to recent years, which adds just adds to the financial pressure we're experiencing. Our expense-driven aids are increasing, so you'll notice building aid is increasing. That is because of building projects that have wrapped up. So that means we will have a large debt service expense, which we'll be selling bonds soon. So it's going up, but there is a large debt service amount to correspond to that. And BOCES aid is remaining, it's going up a little bit. That just means we've spent more on BOCES. And excess cost aids, those are related to special education. For that, we're just spending that money and getting a little bit of aid back. So when those go up, it means we're spending more. Library, textbook, software aid, hardware aid those are called instructional material aids, and we get a per pupil amount for that. So that is projected to be lower going forward. And then the high tax aid is just something that was given to districts in our area that stays flat year over year. And then there's a little bit more of excess cost aid related to special education that is $7,400 that stays flat year over year. So while we are getting some increases to our expense-based aids, those are to cover costs that we've incurred. So our foundation aid is only 1%. And the purpose of foundation aid was really to bridge the gap between what school districts are spending and their tax levy covers. So it's not keeping pace. Another revenue source for our district, which is a source of pride, is non-resident tuition. So here you'll see historical trends across different categories, starting with special education non-resident tuition. So these are students who are placed in Tuckahoe by other districts, and enrollment in this category has remained fairly steady over time. And that consistency reflects the fact that Tuckahoe is well known for the strength and quality of our special education programs. Tuition for these students is set at the greater of the New York State Education Department rate or our actual cost, which ensures that the district is appropriately reimbursed. Parentally placed students, this enrollment tends to fluctuate from year to year, and one of the main reasons, again, is this is a highly desirable district. People want to be in Tuckahoe, and typically when we see a student enroll for non-resident tuition, some point during the year or the next year, they end up moving in. They want to be here. They really want to be in the district. So that revenue fluctuates pretty greatly, and we've had a few that have moved into the district. So once they move in, it shifts them out of this category. And this rate is set annually by the board, and it's something that our Audit and Finance Committee is going to be looking at, because New York State does set a rate for this, and we're below that rate, so it's something that we're going to look at to bring that rate up. The last category is what we call borderline properties. These are properties that fall within both Mount Vernon and Tuckahoe. So the line just goes through at some point. And when that happens, homeowners have the option of designating their school district. They have to make a designation. There's a form they fill out. They make that designation. And then Tuckahoe, if they pick Tuckahoe, we are allowed to collect the portion of taxes that is paid to Mount Vernon. So, and that is another fluctuating revenue, because you can have, once those kids graduate, someone can stay in that house for 20 years and you have no kids there. They sell it and now you've got a new family. So that's just something that fluctuates. We keep track of those properties. We do have some with New Rochelle too, but right now there's no New Rochelle students here, so we're not billing for that. On a side note related to that, and we'll cover it in our expenses, we have the opposite with properties that, border with Bronxville. So we have an expenditure that we pay Bronxville, which is close to $70,000. So a lot of times when we see this revenue, there's an offsetting expenditure for that. Okay. And last but not least, our other revenue sources. So if we go down the line, some of them I've talked about. So we have our pilot payments, which is the first line, and those are established agreements between the town and commercial property owners, where instead of being on the tax roll and assessed by the assessor, there's an agreement, and they usually are developing the property, and it lasts for a certain amount of time. County sales tax, so school districts get a portion of Westchester County sales tax. And a number of years ago, that the sales tax rate went up like 1%, I think. And so we had an influx from there. So we budget for that revenues. We budget for some use of our buildings. Interest earnings is another very highly volatile revenue. Insurance recoveries. So some lines on the 2026-27 budget, you'll see a zero. It's not because we forgot to fill it in. It's just because we don't budget for those revenues, but sometimes we get them. Insurance recoveries just happen. We have an insurance claim. There is an offsetting expense for that. So it's not new money to the district. It means it's probably less a deductible. So if we had $26,000, $361 in insurance recovery revenue, we probably had $27,361 in expenses related to that recovery. Refund of prior year expenses. Those are mostly related to BOCES. When BOCES finishes the year, they tally up everything they had, and if they've come under their budget, they refund the schools. So we typically will get some refunds of prior year expenses, and we have some other smaller ones too. Gifts and donations, we typically don't budget for those, but they happen every year. Premiums on obligations, those are when we sell our tax anticipation notes. We sometimes get a premium on them. It doesn't happen every year. We don't budget for that. Miscellaneous revenues are just little revenues we got for foils or document requests or something that doesn't fall into any of these categories. This one I am proud of, the federal aid, which is Medicaid reimbursements. Many districts leave this money on the table, and I'm really happy to say that we file claims and we participate in the Medicaid reimbursement program. This is a big one. A lot of districts don't. It's a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it. So I'm very proud to say that we participate in this. And the last one is just interfund transfers, and that's related to the debt service fund, and when we get a premium on something that we use to pay the principal. So those are all our other revenues. Last but not least, I made a mistake. This is my last one. So we'll discuss appropriated fund balance, which refers to the use of available reserve funds or fund balance to close the gap between projected revenues and expenditures. So as you can see in recent years, we have appropriated fund balance to support the budget. So that's when we say we take all our revenues and all our expenses and we still have a gap. We say, well, we're going to propose to use fund balance to close that gap. In the past few years, we have not had to do that. We've not had to actually do that. We use it to budget, to balance the budget, but then we don't actually use it. So last year, we were at like 1.7 million when you combine reserves and appropriated fund balance. So, that said, even though we haven't used it, it shouldn't be an indication that that trend will continue. We're always really looking closely at our budgeting practices. In the column that says appropriated reserves, in the past few years, we started strategically appropriating $110,000 from our ERS reserve to offset increases for the employer contributions for pensions. So our non-teachers are part of the employees retirement system, and that rate has been increasing significantly. So rather than put that on the taxpayer, we have that reserve, and we've been strategically using it and making sure we replenish it. However, it's funded not to the level we want, but there's enough to use that to ease the burden. And so this has allowed the district to absorb this externally driven cost, which we have no control over, while protecting instructional programs. We are looking to increase that for 25-26. We'll discuss this with our finance committee to $155,000 from 110 because that rate is going up a bit for 26-27. Also included in the appropriated reserve lines for 26-27 is an additional $220,000 from our tax or Sherry reserve. So we're proposing to use this to fund debt service related to tax or Sherry bonds that go back to 2008 and 2010. So where we were able to, in our tax cap formula, we were allowed to increase the levy for any bonds related to capital projects. We cannot do that for tax certs. So that's just absorbed by the levy. So as we're looking at it, we have a bond that goes back to 2008 and 2010 that only has 3 years left on it. So we're proposing that for the next 3 years, it's not a recurring expense. It's only recurring for a short period of time. We're proposing to liquidate that out of the tax cert reserve and use it to pay down this debt strategically so that it's not impacting the levy. We still have a TBD in the appropriated fund balance portion, which was 1.6 million last year. So as we build our expenditure budget, we'll have a better idea of what will be needed there. Thank you.
Let's go back to the last slide for a second.
Sure.
So I just wanted to point, I think this is a very important slide for us. And as we forward planning and as we look into the future, the additional use of the unappropriated fund balance is something that we have to be very strategic with. And it's crucial, it's essential that a school district has a healthy fund balance reserve. And one of the things is that it becomes a challenge to actually, year after year, to build up that reserve. So as you can see, the increase of what we're projecting for next year with our fund balance reserve to potentially balance the budget does increase quite a bit. So we just need to be mindful of that. And the other piece is how we have to balance expenses on the other side and be very strategic, looking at those items and the essentials and the opportunities that we're going to put forward when we start to talk about programs and services so that we do create that balanced budget. And I think that's just not only for this year, but also into the future, because once the reserve is gone, it takes multiple years to eventually get it back to a healthy spot. And we're in a good spot right now with our reserves, but again, it has to be very deliberate moving forward and make very careful budget decisions about programs and services and make sure that we're really getting every ounce of what we put forward for our students.
And if I could just say, these types of charts, this isn't a Tuckahoe thing, so I don't want you guys to think it's something that is only happening to us. Like, this is kind of going through every school right now. It's just the trend we're seeing, especially with 68% being at 1%.
Okay, so we're optimistic the governor will come through with some more funding, but looking ahead, we're going to kind of give you an outline of the next steps in our budget development process, including continued advocacy at the educational priorities while monitoring the New York State budget. We'll review the school and department requests, facilities improvements, and staffing needs internally, and we'll ensure that they align with our district goals and our in-process strategic plan. We'll also be preparing fund balance projections and monitor the current year performance, looking at our actuals, seeing where current spending is and how that projects for the second half of the school year. Throughout the process, we'll keep the board and community updated and continue to update and present our long-range financial plan that's going to guide sustainable decision-making for the future. We've got a listing of our upcoming meetings, important dates in the budget process, provide additional presentations at our workshops as well as regular board meetings about the development of the 26-27 school year budget. As more information is released by the governor and from the state legislature about various programs and revenue sources that will be included in the governor's final budget, tentatively set for April 1st. Many years it does come late, so we'll keep our eyes out open for that. We'll have more financial information to discuss, as well as some of the recommended programs, enhancements, and the additions being proposed for consideration by and from our administrative team in the involving and fluid budgeting process for board adoption, which is tentatively set for April 20th board meeting. Also, as mentioned last meeting, we may be requesting an additional board meeting for the board to consider to add a date in between the March 9th and the 20th. To be determined at the long period of time, especially with changes to the governor's proposal that come out that time. We want to have that as an option to prevent to the board and the community before a final budget is presented to the board for adoption. So there, I'll leave it for, thank you for the audience listening and for any questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation. It was very thorough, and I appreciate all of the work that you guys did on it. Do we want to open it up for questions? Anybody? Anybody have
Sure.
questions?
I have maybe a simple question. So what districts are within the 32% that don't fall within that safe harmless? What types of districts?
It varies. There are districts that last year were in Save Harmless and now they're not. What drives the formula is a lot of things like enrollment, what's reported on tax returns when people file their tax returns, which determines the wealth. So there's a lot that goes into it. Some of our neighboring districts are in the 1%, and some were in Save Harmless last year and are now getting an increase. So everything's really unique to the district. But we have the information for the whole state, and I believe it's on the state website. But it's district specific. But there's some right here in our neighborhood that 1%, and some are getting an increase.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have no questions. It was very well done. It was a very detailed presentation. So thank you for that. Didn't leave me with any questions other than more of a comment of, if I just want to clarify what I think I heard. I know every year our appropriated fund balance, for the last couple of years, we haven't actually used the appropriated fund balance like you said. But I think what I'm hearing is that, I know it's early, but you're anticipating that next year we may actually have to use and really use it. That's what you're thinking at this point?
There's a
Yeah.
chance. Yeah, we're still looking at it. I mean, things could change with the governor's proposal.
Yeah.
But it's always a possibility.
Yeah.
So,
okay. All right.
you
So
know,
no,
it's always a possibility.
It's always a possibility. But,
Always, yeah.
but I was detecting maybe a little bit more of a anticipation from you guys.
Yes.
Of actually
Yes.
having to use it. Okay.
Mhm.
That's fine. And of the 1.6 or so that's appropriated for this year we're in, I know it's early, but are you anticipating recovering all of that back, or is this?
I don't think we're gonna have to use any for
Yeah.
this year, except for
That
what
you
we
can.
except what we set aside from the reserves to fund our ERS pension costs.
Yeah.
So that's really taking a reserve and using the reserve. It's not taking like available funds and using that. So I don't think we'll need the 1.6 million
good.
this year.
Yeah.
But we track it closely. You know, we're a little behind. So like right now, it's February. We still have bills going.
Sure.
But we pretty much can anticipate what's coming. We look at it very
Yeah.
closely.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to echo that, yes, it was a very thoughtful presentation. And also, I just want to thank you guys for your advocacy, for writing the letters, and for attending those meetings. And I do want to say that I did hear that Faith had some really good ideas when it comes to the mandate for UPK
Oh, yeah.
for the 27-28. That a lot of school district business officials were very impressed with your suggestion. So thank you. Okay, so let's move on then to board comments. Does anybody have any comments?
I think Ben will take what I heard about our cheerleaders, they did very well up in, or down in Florida, I should say. But I'll let Ben talk about it, get the information.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right, so then comments from our superintendent.
All right, thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the prelude, Trustee Abrams. So a couple highlights I want to share. A lot going on here at Tuckahoe, all levels. Just a few pieces of great student success. So this week I just want to acknowledge it was National School Counseling Week, during which we recognized our school counselors and clinicians, their unique contributions to our school district. This year's theme was School Counselors Amplify Student Success. Highlight the essential role counselors and clinicians play in supporting students' academic achievement, social emotional well-being, and post-secondary and career planning. So kudos to all of our counselors. In celebration of the 2026 Olympic Games, our middle school's students will be participating in a Spirit Day this upcoming Friday on February 6th by wearing the red, white, and blue in support their patriotic themes of the Olympic opening ceremonies. for Team USA. Kudos to our outstanding Tuckahoe Middle School debate team. Great recent performance, participated in the New York Debate League tournament on Saturday, January 24th, 2026, competing alongside a highly accomplished field of students from across the region. The tournament brought together 19 schools, 366 student competitors, and 103 judges from 2 different states. Tuckahoe was well represented with 18 student debaters and 6 student judges helping to support the event. Throughout the day, the team demonstrated an extremely strong preparation, effective advocacy, and intellectual rigor, earning a total of 9 debate wins. So kudos to our students. Congratulations to all of our debate team members, and a special congratulations to Mikhail Saeed for earning Tuckahoe's Top Speaker Award for the competition. On Tuesday, the 27th, we celebrated Senior Day for our varsity bowling team at Boulderland in the Bronx. It was a special opportunity to recognize and honor outstanding seniors. We had 5 there, currently sitting in first place as a team. We also had a tremendous opportunity to capture the league title. I believe Mr. Casano, Mr. Fiore were there to recognize our students. They're captured the league for the 2nd year in a row, an accomplishment that would mark just the 2nd time in school history. They also well positioned to earn another trip to sectionals. So keep doing a great job to our varsity bowling. And as previously briefly mentioned, our cheerleading team is currently competing at the National High School Cheer Championships in Orlando this week, finishing up, probably returning earlier today, probably home now safe. The team delivered multiple outstanding performances, competing on the national stage against some of the best programs in the country. Our team rose to the occasion in remarkable Tuckahoe fashion. In their first ever appearance in the game day division, the Tigers earned an impressive 9th place finish out of more than 88 teams. In the highly competitive traditional division, they achieved an incredible 4th place finish out of 111 teams. So these are tremendous accomplishments and a testament to the team's dedication, preparation, and competitive spirit, and we're extremely proud of all of them. The now focus shifts back to the home as they begin their preparations for the upcoming Section 1 championships for our cheerleaders. So great job in representing Tuckahoe down in Orlando at the national event, and great accomplishment in your placement with a very competitive field. So kudos to the entire team. On Wednesday the 4th, we're looking forward to Tuckahoe Athletics in partnership with the Tuckahoe Athletic Council. We'll probably be celebrating the National Girls and Women in Sports Day. Our pregame ceremony will begin at 4:30 p.m., recognizing teachers, coaches, and staff members who are alumni of Tuckahoe Athletics programs. These individuals have demonstrated outstanding achievement and unwavering commitment to our school district, to the growth of women's in athletics at Tuckahoe. Followed by 4:45, our varsity girls basketball team will take on Bronxville, what promises to be an exciting matchup. Cottle Cubs will be shooting around at halftime. It looks like a great event, and the evening will continue at 6 p.m. for our JV girls that also will face Bronxville that evening. We had our recent snow club trip to skiing at Bel Air Mountain at the ski center. A total of 50 students participated, had a great trip, even though there was some cold temperatures. So kudos to our skiers and the team that organized that. And just wanted to give a couple quick shout outs. The strategic plan first town hall meeting, I think went very well. We had great attendance. We had about 30 people that came out to talk about our strategic plan, to discuss their thoughts and feedback on the district's future. And we look forward to having our 2nd town hall meeting scheduled on Zoom tomorrow. We have about 50 community members signed up, so looking forward to the Zoom event tomorrow evening. And our last one is coming up on Saturday for anyone who's available, Saturday morning, 10 a.m. here in the library. We still have lots of space for that. We have about 15 people signed up for that, so we'd love to have a few more for the Saturday event. If you're looking for something to do, we'll bring some donuts, and look forward to some good company if you're available on Saturday morning for that. And that's all I have for my superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Roberts. I just want to thank everybody for all of their input for the strategic plan, filling out the survey, coming to the town halls. Stakeholder input is really essential in building a good, solid plan for the district future. So thank you to all of the community stakeholders who went ahead and helped us out with that. And congratulations to all of our students, especially the debate team and the cheerleaders and bowling. Congratulations. Okay, next is comments from our business manager.
Thank you. I just want to thank the board. I know that the presentations are long and I appreciate the feedback and we appreciate the feedback. So thank you very much. And we are going to continue to advocate on behalf of the district for fair funding. And I just want to say that we do have a finance committee meeting coming up next week. And we are planning a facilities committee meeting coming up soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is comments from our community partners.
Oh, it has to be read?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the PTA report, we've had a busy couple of weeks and a busy few weeks coming up. We had a successful heart-to-heart dance for the third through fifth grade here at the high school a couple weeks ago. The kids had a great time. It was kids with their parents or a special special kind of adult in their life. So they all had a great time. We had our Westchester Knicks gathering the very next day. We had our ladies' night bingo this past Friday night, which was a great opportunity for moms to come out and kind of let their hair down and, you know, fight to the finish to get some handbags and spa gift certificates. It's hilarious to watch. Moms competing for spa gift certificates and handbags. So everybody had a really good time, which was nice. And then we had over the weekend, and I can't believe I'm forgetting. It's a ninja place, but we had a kids night out where the parents could drop the kids off for a couple of hours, and we had 70 kids showing up to that, which was fantastic, really exciting. And I think that we'll try to do a couple more of those throughout the year where parents can drop off their kids, stay nearby, enjoy themselves for dinner out, and then go pick up their kids. So that was great. I'm going to let our friends of the Tuckahoe Athletic Council talk a little bit more about 24 for Tuckahoe, which is coming up this Wednesday. I mentioned it last time, but it's a joint event among the 3 community partners, a one-day fundraiser. We also have community service night. The community service committee is doing that at Cottle for 3rd to 5th grade kids to come in with their parents. They are going to be, this is on February 12th, the kids are going to be putting together breakfast packages for Feeding Westchester. They're going to be writing letters to veterans and then also doing some artwork that will be distributed at White Plains Hospital. So that's that's going to be part of the Random Acts of Kindness Week that takes place down at Cottle. And then the only other thing I'll mention is it's a 5th grade fundraiser at Jack's on February 10th. So if you go to Jack's for dinner, whether it's eat-in or takeout, a percentage will go to the 5th grade to fund part of their trip later in the school year. I think they're going into a Broadway show. So if you don't feel like cooking on Tuesday, February 10th, please go over to Jack's and support the 5th grade. And I think I will leave it at that and transfer it over to Tuckahoe Athletic Council. Thanks.
Hi, Beth Silvestri, representing the Tuckahoe Athletic Council. Wanted to share that we are thrilled to be celebrating our winter senior athletes by displaying banners in the gym and sharing senior spotlights on our social media pages on their respective senior days. We have 2 upcoming fundraisers. The first is March Dadness, a bracket-style basketball tournament on February 28th. We know that that's not March. That invites dads, coaches, and teachers from across the district to participate. Event details have been shared and will continue to be shared on social media. We are also participating in 24 for Tuckahoe, a district-wide initiative which promotes giving denominations of $24, in which funds raised will be distributed amongst the 3 community partners, SEPTA, Tuckahoe Athletic Council, and PTA. Thank you to all who participate, and please be on the lookout for additional information on social media on Wednesday. Thank you, Mr. Roberts, for sharing about Girls and Women in Sports Day. I will scratch that off my list. And we are also in the process of planning the Varsity Athletic Awards Dinner, scheduled for June 2nd at 6 p.m. at Molino's. And lastly, I'd like to thank the school administrators for their continued support with communicating our endeavors out. It's constant emailing, requesting them to post our communications, and we just really appreciate that. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Campana, 8 Pasadena Road. I'm here representing SEPTA, and yes, we are going to be partnering with the PTA and the Tuckahoe Athletic Council for 24 for Tuckahoe. So look out for that. We also have coffee and conversations coming up where we partnered with the PTA to have conversations with the head of the special education department, Ms. Deutsch, February 10th at 6:30 in the library here in the high school, middle school. We also have coming up March 6th, it's a Friday night, a middle school movie night. So look out for some flyers that are going to give us some more information. That'll be coming soon. I also wanted to talk about our first meeting. We had our first official SEPTA meeting this January, and we discussed some things that we would love to see happen as part of the special ed committees. We brainstormed a list of different things, and I also had forwarded this to the board, and I got some really nice feedback, and we were really excited about that. We discussed 5 big proposals. We talked about installing cameras in classrooms for self-contained students. We discussed providing more registered behavior techs for particular classrooms that would warrant that need. Also including SEPTA representation on hiring committees for different special education services. Installing exterior door alarm systems where an alarm would sound if a child exited a building from within, and employing full-time service providers like BCBAs, occupational therapists, and physical therapists. We currently have those providers, but we would like to see them in a greater capacity. But like I said, we already got some great feedback from the board, and we hope to continue this discussion. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank all of you, and thank you for all your advocacy, for everything that you do. I love the Tuckahoe, the 24 for Tuckahoe. Last time we did it, it was hugely successful. And I am assuming that if we want to, we can donate more than just $24 if we would like. Denominations. Yes. Okay, so thank you very much for all that information, and for your advocacy and your emails. Okay, next up is first recognition of the audience. Just a reminder, the Board of Education allows for public participation at its regular monthly meetings. The first recognition of the audience period is reserved for comments and questions related specifically to items on the current public meeting agenda. Each speaker is permitted 1 opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes. Responses from the board or superintendent may be provided later in the meeting during the board and superintendent comment section, or may be followed up at a later date as needed. The board and the superintendent will not engage in back and forth dialogue during public comment and question portion of the agenda. Does anybody have anything for first recognition? On agenda items only. Yep. Okay. Just Mike, when you just say your address, please.
Just my address, not my name.
Well, that.
Michael Denning, 72 Stebbins. How are we doing this evening? All right, as you were discussing before about the revenue sources, the state revenue sources, as we're embarking on our tax season now, remind your accountant when you file your taxes to put in the code for Tuckahoe School District, not say you're an Eastchester resident and they automatically put down Eastchester. They're getting credit for your income tax. So remind your accountant to put down the Tuckahoe School District code. In that realm as well, when you make big purchase items, I don't know how we can do that. You go out and you buy yourself a brand new car for $100,000, you're paying sales tax on that. Again, you're registering it to Eastchester or Tuckahoe. I don't know how that money gets technically allocated that way, but that's something that we should look into. As well as, I don't know if the state sends us money, correct? Do they break down what it is? Sales tax, income tax?
So the sales tax money comes from the county. So the county just they take all sales tax collected, they put it into a pool, and they have a formula on how they divvy it up by county. So, you know, if you bought something and live in Eastchester or Tuckahoe, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's coming here. So the county sales tax is a different formula. The state is similar in that all their tax revenue goes into one big pool, and then they develop budgets for whatever they need and then allocate it that way. But I thank you. I'm sorry. Was I supposed to respond? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Can I continue? I'm so sorry. We're one of the few school districts that participate in an income verification program where we get to verify if someone is claiming on their tax return that they live here, if it is in our district or isn't. So
For enrollment purposes.
no, for when they file their tax return based on the address. So we are able to do that.
I'm confused on that. So you confirm that their address when they file their tax returns in order to be enrolled in the school district?
No. So what happens is the state does their vetting based on our zones.
Okay.
And then they send us a spreadsheet and saying everyone that filed their income taxes, here's this address, and they claim Tuckahoe, and we can go through it and say, no, that's not our district. That's Eastchester or something for
I'm sure
state aid,
Eastchester doing the
for
same
state
for
aid
us, right?
purposes. Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, same thing with Bronxville, right? You live in Chester Heights, you have a Bronxville PO. So it's just, remind your accountants to put down the right code for Tuckahoe School District so we're getting credit for the money. And that side as well, it's what they send from the state. They're just sending you one check. They don't tell you that this is from income, this is from sales. No, okay. Because then again, like the New York State Lottery, there's a formula. In order for that to be changed, you have to have, a bill put up to have it changed. But formula comes out to be like Tuckahoe gets $74 a student, Dobbs Ferry gets $650, Yorktown gets $1,100. So there's a vast difference there. So we need to try and collectively talk to our assembly people and state representatives to try and get that formula changed. Because when Yorktown was just all apple orchards, it was one thing, but now it's a bigger district and they have more to draw from. Where if they're getting $1,100 a kid and we're getting $74 a kid, let's even it out here and give us 500 and give them 500. But thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. So business of the board. Approve a budget transfer. Resolve that the Board of Education of the Tuckahoe Union-Free School District approve the attached budget transfer. Do I have a motion? Pete, second. Lou, all in favor? Approve the meeting minutes. Resolve that the Board of Education of the Tuckahoe Union-Free School District approve the minutes of the Board of Education meeting held on January 20th, 2026. Do I have a motion? Pete, second. Joel, all in favor? Okay.
I wasn't present.
Right, but you
I can still vote on that?
Yes.
Okay. And personnel recommendations. Approve personnel recommendations. Resolve that the Board of Education of the Tuckahoe Union-Free School District approve personnel recommendations A through D. Do I have a motion? Pete, second. Joel, all in favor? Okay. And now we are up to the second recognition of the audience, and this is for any topic. It does not need to be budget related. And once again, I'll read our policy. The Board of Education allows for the participation of at its regular monthly meetings. The second recognition of the audience period is reserved for comments not associated with the current public meeting agenda. Each speaker is permitted one opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes. The board response may be provided later in the meeting during board comments or by the administration at a later date as appropriate. Responses from the board or superintendent may be provided later in the meeting during the board and superintendent comment section or may be followed up at a later date as needed. The board and the superintendent will not engage in back and forth dialogue during the public comment and question period of the agenda. Any comments for second recognition? Sure, good.
Flor Ramirez Ujaya, 70 Parkview Drive. It's my first time here. So members of the board and Superintendent Roberts, I want to speak tonight about teacher training, transparency, and the critical importance of mandated reporting. Mandated reporting is not a technical requirement or a box to check. It is a cornerstone of child protection. When there is confusion, when there's delay or inconsistency in how we staff are trained or supported to report incidents, vulnerable students are placed at risk. This is especially true in special education settings. I, for one, have a 7-year-old nonverbal child. Strong districts do not rely on informal guidance or assumptions. They provide regular, clear, and documented training on mandated reporting. They ensure staff understand their mandated reporting duties, and that it's clear that no one needs permission to make a report. Transparency is equally important. Families deserve to know what safeguards are in place, how concerns are handled, and how the district ensures accountability. Transparency builds trust. Silence and uncertainty erodes it. So I am here today because I want to urge this board to take an active oversight role by reviewing training protocols, by reinforcing mandated reporting requirements, and committing to a clear, transparent communication when student safety is implicated. The way that a district protects its most vulnerable students is the truest measure of its values. And so I ask this board to lead with urgency, clarity, and accountability. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nobody else? Okay. Board comments. Anybody have any comments?
Sure. Floor, thank you for speaking. I think it's extremely important for all staff and administration alike to participate in professional development, to understand how to care for children like yours and mine alike. And you know, transparency is a huge deal, I think, within any school, quite frankly. And in terms of reporting and teacher training, there needs to be policies in place specific to the special education department. So thank you for your advocacy on that, and we'll make sure that we have discussions. Thank you.
And I just want to add to that communication is extremely important, and it is one of our board goals to make sure that we are do more outreach, but not only outreach, respond appropriately to parents. So thank you. Okay. Comments from the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam President. So, first and foremost, I think thank you for bringing that concern forward, Mr. Ramirez. I think while we did a budget presentation and talked about revenues, there's nothing more important than student safety. Parents entrust us as the school district that we receive their children each and every day. We take care of their every need, and we send them home in better shape and in better spirits than they sent us in. And that's our priority, and it needs to be here. So whether it's, you mentioned training and policy and practice, those are all things that we are committed, that this district will be putting every measure in place and making sure that every adult feels comfortable with the items that you brought up, so that students are fully taken care of in every classroom, in every setting. And I think it's our utmost priority before we look at anything else. And education is the safety and well-being of our students. So your comments are duly noted, and I know you have the full commitment of this board and myself and the administration to make sure that we continue to provide different ways of looking at enhancing our safety protocols across all of our buildings, and as well as mandated reporting, and what does that look like for staff members to feel comfortable or ask questions, and so that everything's done in the utmost care for all of our students in their best interests. So thank you for that piece. So In addition, I wanted to also thank all of our community partners for your comments and your continued work for our district. Without your continued efforts and the efforts of your team and the membership that you support is truly remarkable. I was personally able to go to the Cottle Dance, and it was bar none amazing. The students and the parents that were there, the overall festive spirit of the atmosphere. I got a chance to speak to many of the students on the way out, and they definitely said they had better dance moves than their parents. With confidence, no one hesitated. Some of the parents tried to put up a good fight, but it wasn't a good argument. But just the environment was great, and the amount of time and the effort that all the organizers put into it really shows the dedication of the PTA, the SEPTA, our athletic council, and where we go above and beyond for our students. So thank you for your continued work and partnership with our teachers and supporting them in the classroom and everything that we do here at Tuckahoe. I just look forward to another good few weeks ahead. I don't mean to, sometimes when we do the budget presentations, it may seem doom and gloom a little bit. We're being very thoughtful and want to provide as much detail and transparency of what exists. We're being very conservative in a lot of ways. We're hopeful being optimistic. We want to see and we'll continue to advocate for additional funding. We want to make sure that Tuckahoe gets our fair share and that our students are represented and that we have the advocacy so that they get what they deserve from the state level as well. And while we continue to be fiscally responsible for our tax base here at Tuckahoe, and our priorities doesn't change regardless of budget situation. Our goal is outstanding educational opportunities and programs for our students, and that's what our budgeting process will put forward for that. So I look forward to that, continued dialogues with the administrative team, putting together our plan for next year. We look for great efficiencies, but also additional opportunities for our students, and that's very exciting. So the next few weeks and months will be very important work, and I look forward to the collaborative effort that we're going to put forward those recommendations to the board in the near future for the budgeting process. Concludes my report, Madam President.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we are going to go back to executive session, and we will be we're doing executive session to discuss a specific personnel matter. So we will not be adjourning the meeting, and we'll go there. And thank you all for coming out and for paying attention to our preliminary budget discussions. Have a good night. Oh, well, no. Do I? Because we already had executive session. No, we didn't close it out. No. Sorry.